Ashe, 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 and welcome to the Ashe Shop podcast, the place for people who want to learn about the Orisha and African spiritual practices. I'm Ashley, your Orisha storyteller and guide through the ins and outs of the spiritual journey. Think of this like your weekly spiritual study session. Our studies focus on the practices based within the Yoruba pantheon, so you can expect to hear stories and have lessons from multiple spiritual perspectives, including Isese, Lakumi, Santeria, and more. Every week, we will dig into a different Orisha, exploring their meaning and influence. This week, we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to talk about creation, how things were created, and what this means from a Yoruba perspective. So, the question we're really addressing here is what are the Orisha and where did they come from? Let's let it be known that the greatest percentage of Africans enslaved for New World labor came from the Yoruba nation. The Yoruba are a complex people with complex beliefs and a complex language. Everything in their language has meaning, including their words and perspectives of the Most High, the Creator, or as we call it, God. They even have multiple words to describe God. Olodumare means the owner of creation. Olorun means the owner of heaven, while Olofi means the owner of spirit. All of these words are used to describe what we know as God. Even within the Benin culture, Maulisa is the word used that they use to refer to their supreme being, while in Congo and Angola, the equivalent to the name Olodumare is Nzambi. Let's take a look at a description of Olodumare found in the Isese Spirituality Workbook, The Ancestral Wisdom of the Ifa Orisha Tradition by Ayele Kumari. You can find this description on page 18 of her book. She says that, so by identifying first with Olodumare, we are reminded not only of our source, but the connection of all to the same source. Olodumare is the first progenitor of our existence. Olodumare, however, is not called upon for every human need. In Ifa verse Iwari Osa, explains a time when everyone was coming to Olodumare begging to be saved. Olodumare responded that we were given everything we needed to excel on this planet, but those who have already given ability do not use their ability. Those that have been given wisdom do not use that wisdom that I have given them. So there is no need to continue to call for answers and saving when you have the tools you need to answer them. So Olodumare cast a cloth over the world so people are forced to learn how to use these gifts and resources they were given. As an extension of Olodumare is our Ori. Our Ori is our divine self that is always connected to source. Ori is an individualized spark of consciousness that is emitted from Olodumare. So Kumari identified our Ori as our divine self that is always connected to source. Our Ori is an individualized spark of consciousness that is emitted from Olodumare, while Sha is the limitless potential of that consciousness. From Olodumare, we get Orisha. The Orisha are the creations or manifestations of Olodumare. Each Orisha controls or is a different aspect of creation in nature. From this, we're able to see that the Yorubas are giving us a broader perspective of God and existence. So let's take a look at creation from a Santeria perspective. The version of this creation story can be found in Santeria Stories by Luis Manuel Nuñez. This story is titled The Beginning and the Beginning of the World. This is how the primeval world was created by Olodumare and how in turn the Orishas arose from Olodumare's creation. The world was founded on nothing. There was no one to witness its beginning. Nothing lived. There were no animals, but even the smallest insects. Nothing moved, nothing grew. There were even no plants. Olodumare, the supreme being, moved along in this desolation. Huge flames roared up from a lifeless rock, fire and stone. That was all that has what was in the world. The flames had been burning forever. Time and change were not in the world. Steam and smoke overhead, rocks beneath the layers of cloud. This is where Olodumare lived. It must have been the way he wished to live, for that's how it was. Olodumare grew tired of the flames and the loneliness. He looked around at the smoke and rocks and thought of change. He said, "Let it rain." All those clouds that had been growing for so long, those clouds were so heavy that they could barely stay up in the sky. Oceans came down when they opened up and let their waters fall. An eternity of rain fell. The torrent put out the flames and covered the great world. Giant rivers broke up the solid rock. Stones ground and tumbled against the other. Boulders the size of houses became pebbles, and pebbles became dust. Parts of the world had been charred pits where the fires had burned hottest. The waters poured into those gouges until they became oceans. And it was these oceans that all the Yamayas were born, from Okute to Olokun. Olodumare grew as bored as an eternity of water had been, as he was in an eternity of flames. He said, "Stop." The rain stopped. Everything was dark and quiet. Olodumare wished for sun. He said, "Let there be light." Aganyu, the sun was born. His light shone upon the earth. The sky was blue for the first time. Another eternity went by. Ashes swirled by in the quiet waters. They clumped together and sank. The thick, muddy mass grew higher and higher than the level of the seas. Rot and pestilence bubbled up from the mud's depth. Disease and epidemics were released and gave birth to Babaluaye. Aganyu's light dried the mud until it became fertile soil. This is where Orisha Oko was born. The soil gave life to grasses and shrubs. It is from these Osane was born. The very highest parts of the hills became mountains and volcanoes. Ogwe was born from these. The volcanoes poured out rivers of molten iron, the iron that Ogun uses. From Ogun came all the weapons used by the warrior Orishas. That was the beginning of the world. We see that Olodumare is the owner of creation. Olodumare goes and creates everything. This story reminded me of the telling of how God created the world in Genesis within the Bible. Know that there are many different stories about the details of creations within your Yoruba-based practices. So within Lakumi, you have different stories. Within Santeria, you have different stories. Within Isese, you have different stories. But they all agree that there is one God known as Olodumare, Olorun, or Olofi. It is Olodumare who granted Ashe to each Orisha, defining their roles in existence. Olodumare created the Orisha, and it's Olodumare who creates. But then from this story, we also see that Olodumare puts a blanket on creation, kind of distancing themselves from what actually happens in the world. So the Orisha are granted their Ashe, but it's kind of like they can do whatever they do with it. So we see Olodumare creating while the Orisha are building, exploring, destroying, suffering, surviving, and thriving. My next story tells about what happens when you create beings and you give them free will. They have all this power, but sometimes they don't really know what to do with it. At one point in civilization, the Orishas did not know who was the leader and who was king. Exactly, they knew their roles, but everyone thought they were more powerful than the other, to the point where they start thinking they're more powerful than Olodumare. Maybe it's because of Olodumare's distance, because Olodumare is kind of like a absent parent. I gave you life, do what you will with that life. The Orisha eventually begin to start plotting against Olodumare, saying that Olodumare is old, Olodumare is weak, Olodumare is not fit to lead, Olodumare is not even leading us. We are more powerful. We should be the ones to take the place of Olodumare. All of the Orisha begin to plot and plan, all except for one. The Orisha, who is known as the divine messenger to Olodumare, was not included in their plans because the other Orisha knew that as soon as Eshu found out what was going on, Eshu was going to say something. This plot ends up backfiring on the Orisha because the Orisha Eshu does end up finding out about what's going on and does inform Olodumare. Olodumare is angry. Olodumare is like, "I can't let this slide. I can't let y'all play with me. I created you. I brought you into this world. I'll take you out of it." And Olodumare removed all of their Ashe from the world. Not that they removed it, but they just stopped pouring it down there. It wasn't coming anymore. So after a while, without the Ashe replenishing itself, it dries up. The Orisha starts singing a different song now. They cry, oh, what did we do to deserve this? All of my offerings, because if there's no Ashe, nothing's being created, nothing's being made. The people cannot make offerings to the Orisha. The Orisha cannot make offerings to each other. Everything is drying up. There is no plants. There are no animals. Everything is leaving. So again, the Orisha are meeting, but this is a different kind of meeting. Instead of them plotting to overthrow Olodumare, they're singing, now how do we beg for Olodumare's forgiveness? What do we need to do to get back at Olodumare's good graces? And they each get up there and try to say, well, maybe if I do this or maybe if I do that, but the gates to heaven are closed, even to the beings created in heaven. All of the Orisha have tried, and all of the Orisha have failed, with the exception of one. And Oshun's sitting back like, I really think I can help. And everybody looks over at Oshun and they said, girl, sit down. You just sit there and look cute. Oshun said, I am more than beautiful. I am determined. I am smart. I am strong. I am industrious. And everybody again laughs at her. Oshun spreads her wings as she is in the form of a peacock, and they laugh even harder, baby. Because they like, I know she's not about to try to fly up but I never seen a peacock fly before. And they all laughing, but Oshun has already taken off. She's already spread her wings. She's already flapping, flying, soaring into the sky towards Olorun, towards heaven. About halfway there, Oshun kind of realizes, I don't really think I thought this through. This is really far. But she keeps going. When she's almost there, she's like, it is getting hot. I am tired, but I got to keep going. Despite how hot it is, despite how tired she is, Oshun keeps flying. She keeps pumping her wings. She keeps going. At one point, she even just passes out. When Oshun awakens, she's laying in bed. And Olodumare is looking down at her like, oh, my beautiful one, what has happened to you? And she tries to speak, but Olodumare is like, baby, you are very damaged. Don't try to talk. But Oshun says, we need help. You have to help everybody. You have to help the people. I came here to ask you to help them. And Olodumare says, I see your sacrifices and I see your suffering. And I will happily restore my Ashe to the earth because of your sacrifice. And Oshun's like, what sacrifice? He shows her a mirror. And Oshun has saved everyone. She has saved the Orisha, but in turn, she has sacrificed something very valuable to her, her beauty. And in this form, Oshun Ibu Kole, the vulture, is born. And it's interesting here because we have this all-powerful being, Olodumare, and people are like, why can't he just restore Oshun to what she looked like before? You can't take back her sacrifice. Her sacrifice is already made. Just as Oshun is seen in the beauty of the peacock, her beauty must also be found in that of the vulture. Olodumare, Olorun, Olofi. 3 names that describe one supreme being in many different ways. The creator, the maker, the owner of spirit, the owner of life, the owner of heaven, the glorious one who is above, the one whose works is done to perfection. Their knowledge is incomparable. Olodumare has no equal. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Of course, you have a homework assignment, and this week's homework assignment is a journal prompt. Describe God according to your perspective and experience, and you can dig deeper into that by journaling about what type of relationship you have with God. I hope this podcast helped you gain more insight into Olodumare, Olorun, Olofi, our supreme being, and helped you gain a greater understanding of the Orisha. Next week, we will be talking all about Eshu, the good, the bad, and the infinite. The resources used today can be found in the book list located at theasheshop.com. You can also register for classes, book a session, and get all the supplies you need to anoint your body with our spiritual bath and body products. Thank you for visiting the Ashe Shop. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Oh.